Hey y'all! Welcome to another video. As per usual, we've got our disclaimer down here. Feel free to read that. Anyway, so in my last video, I talked about professionalism and ties to whiteness, is how I'll say it. And in that, I kind of mentioned hair discrimination, like natural hair, black hair, whatever term you use for it, hair discrimination. And that's a topic that's kind of been big in my brain for a very long while. So I decided to dedicate a whole video to it because I can do what I want. So if you're ready and I'm ready, let's get into it. Okay, so if you're here from my last video, which information card, wherever it is, go ahead and go watch that. It's got a lot of really good information, a lot of context that I'm probably going to gloss over a lot in this video. We talked a lot about Western standards of professionalism and how that has a lot of ties to white supremacy. So that also has to do with natural hair or black hair. So when we think of it, I'm white. I'm not sure if you knew this about me. I mentioned this last video too. I am very white. So my experience with my hair is going to be very different than someone who is black and having their experience with their hair. So when a professional were to see my hair, like if I were to go in for an interview, it's neat, it's clean, more groomed, it's cut nicely. And that's because a lot of professionals are going to understand my hair. Because a lot of higher ups tend to be white. They tend to look like me. And that kind of works in my favor because, I give off a good impression. However, just because it works in my favor doesn't mean it works for everybody. For instance, there is that lovely, lovely myth, that little misconception that people who have natural hair are dirty or unkempt in some way. And that counts against them in professionalism. Like we talked about those standards in the last video. And that's bullshit. It's so bullshit. We're gonna debunk some myths later on. But for now, all you have to know is that everything that is going to be discussed in this video does tie back to the workplace and professional standards. So with that out of the way, we are going to now jump into the myths because, we're just that upset about it. We got to get it out of the way. Okay, deep breaths. Okay, myths about natural hair. I did a lot of research for this. Some of the myths I came across, I don't understand them very well. Just going to preface that. But I'm including them here because some people may believe them. I don't, which is why they are myths. There's research to prove that they are false. But I'm going to include some, not every single myth to ever exist. This is not an exhaustive list. But this is just enough to really set that standard that, you gotta look into things more than just preconceived notions. That's a really big theme we're noticing here on this channel, is you can't just assume things. So, myth number 1, natural hair is dirty. It isn't. I know I just mentioned that, literally isn't. I looked up a hair routine for natural hair, and there was a pre-wash, a wash, there's styling, which can take hours, protecting it overnight. All I do to my hair is wash and condition it. And maybe put some gel in it. That's it. So if that's my hair routine and people can look at my hair and be like, oh yeah, that's clean. Wouldn't a hair routine that involves more steps and more cleaning products and more just attention and care, wouldn't that also be clean? That's all I'm saying. Anyway, number 2, locks. Locks do not come from hair being dirty. Locks occur naturally when hair is not brushed. The hair is clean, it just isn't brushed. That is what I found. That's not the full process, obviously, but all we need to care about for the purposes of this is that locks does not equal dirty. And I will not be using the term dreadlocks. That has bad origins. Google it if you must, but they're locks. Anyway, 3rd, the length of natural hair. Apparently, some places seem to think that there is a certain length that natural hair can be to where it gets too unruly or whatever. I don't know how people refer to hair. I'm not too big in the business world quite yet. But from what I found in my research is that the length of natural hair is not like a cut and dry thing. Like you can look at my hair and think, oh yeah, that's short, because it is. My hair is extremely short. But someone with natural hair who has really tight coils could have hair that appears to be this length. But if you were to stretch out one of the curls, you'd be a lot longer. Or maybe someone with natural hair could have coils that aren't as tight and could have short hair and it would look like mine. Or maybe different hair thicknesses have like a part to play in it. The point is, trying to standardize it does not work because hair is different depending on who you're talking to. Like if you're talking to me versus someone who's like super curly, like my sister has really curly hair and her hair poofs out. It's still really short. It's longer than mine. It looks the same length, but when you pull her curls, it goes down to like here-ish on her. Like that's kind of how it works. It's just a different hair type, you know? It's just like connecting it back to things that white people may understand, like curls versus straight hair. Anyway, so those are like just a couple of myths that I looked at. Obviously, there are more out there, but I think we can all agree that from looking at this, making assumptions isn't helping anybody. Assuming that hair is dirty because you don't understand it is only hurting people. So when we think about that assumption, aren't there other assumptions people might be making? Not even just about hair, but like just other things in general. Assumptions don't help anybody. That's just like a big thing. I'm going to put it on the screen. Assumptions don't help anybody. Don't assume things. Do research. Check yourself before you wreck yourself. Remember last video, our tips and tricks. We're going to bring those up again later. Anyway, I'm jumping ahead of myself because of lots of feelings. Let's go into the history of natural hair, because like we've gone through the myths. So like where did some of these come from and why is natural hair such a big prevalent topic? This is the context. All right, everyone's favorite word, colonization. Aww. I like doing my hand movements. Anyway, if we think about it, a lot of white people from Europe and from other places, of course, but Europe, went to places like Africa, where there were people that were not white and believed a lot of things, just like right off the bat. Because if you were there for like gold and minerals and to get some like slaves and stuff, cultural significance was not like at the forefront of that. So we got to keep that in mind because a lot of misconceptions come from that. So like, for instance, one thing I found in my lovely amounts of research, you guys know how much I love research. Colonizing means war, right? So a lot of ideas that natural hair, black hair is unkempt or unruly or dirty came from those times of war. And I don't know about y'all, but I am not exactly focused on looking prim and proper if I'm fighting for my life. So we gotta think about that. So this is not great. And then of course we jump into slavery, you know, when the colonizers took away the people from Africa. Still not great, you know, not a huge fan of that. But we got more bad stuff from that because slave mistresses, so the wives of the owners, would cut off female slaves' hair because it was seen as confusing to the men. I don't fully understand it, but it's got academic articles. It's got all of the stuff. I don't get it. I'm also not a historian. I can't make any big assumptions, but I think that the slave mistresses were just jealous, maybe, or upset that their husbands were giving attention to other women. Who knows? Who cares? Because the thing we should be caring about is that it happened, not why, but that it did happen. Because that was so long ago. We can talk all day about why. But there's so much history around the negativity surrounding black hair and cutting it off, which, you know, still happens in schools these days. I'm not sure if you knew this, but teachers can and do like cut off Black children's hair if they see it as dirty or not up to standards of the dress code, which is so wrong, especially when you connect it back to this. I don't know the why, but if we can figure out the why, we can stop it. But like, anyway, that's besides the point. For the purposes of this, we only care that it happened and that it sucks and that it's still kind of happening. So from there, we see Black women today finding a lot of power in hair and like styling it, keeping it natural, feeling connected to themselves. I'm not Black, but I've read quotes, read interviews, and pretty much everyone who was interviewed was like, yes, I started to feel more like myself and more powerful when I embraced my natural hair. I'm like, oh, that's super cool. And then you look at the history and it's like, oh, maybe it's because white people didn't let you do that for so long that like, now that you have the chance to like connect back to that, it's powerful. Like if someone told me for so long that I wasn't allowed to cut my hair and I had to keep it really long, this short hairstyle would be like even more empowering for me. It's already like gender affirming, fighting, you know, patriarchy or whatever, gender norms. So this hairstyle is already empowering for me. So I can only imagine like a fraction of the empowerment that people may feel from reclaiming something that was taken from their ancestors for years and years and years and years and years. So like when businesses are discriminating against natural hair, you're discriminating against empowerment. That's not great. It's not diverse. It's not culturally sensitive. It's not good, bottom line. And like maybe they're not aware of this. Maybe you, as a part of business, aren't aware of this either. But now you are. And it's like, what is happening in the world to fix this problem? What has really sparked this video at the end of the day was when I found out about the Crown Act. So we're just gonna like jump right into that and like talk more about what exactly that is. All right, the Crown Act, Creating a Respectful and Open World for Natural Hair Act. You may have heard of it. Dove is one of the co-sponsors, co-creators, or something of this act. So, you know, it's fairly prevalent in the mainstream. But at the end of the day, the purpose of the Crown Act is to ban hair discrimination in educational and professional spaces. So we mentioned in schools how teachers have cut off Black students' hair. That would no longer be permissible. It's already not really permissible, but like, since it's happening, you know, I'm not an absolute expert on what's going on in the schools. The purpose of this is to talk about professional stuff. But the schools are a good example because, you know, it connects really solidly. But then professional spaces also connect really solidly, you know, like, because, you know, some people aren't allowed to get jobs because of their hair. Like, they're not seen as professional enough because of those professionalism standards we talked about in the last video, which if you haven't watched it at this point, go watch it. It's a good video. Anyway, back to the Crown Act. So as of recording this video, it has been ratified by 19 states, which, you know, good on them. Ohio isn't one of them, though. Ohio needs to get on that. According to the Crown Act website, Ohio hasn't even filed the legislation or any legislation inspired by or similar to the Crown Act. So, like, that's not super great, but it is going through Congress right now, which is, you know, super exciting. And we think about this, and it's like, do we want discrimination in our workplaces? The answer I'm coming up with is no. So what can we do to like help get this Crown Act through so that we can get some good diversity going on, get people the jobs they deserve? So what we can do, there's actually a lot we can do. You know, it can feel hard to feel empowered as American citizens sometimes, but there is stuff we can do. So the first thing you can do is sign petitions. If you come across a petition for the Crown Act, go sign it. Because why not? One signature It takes like a minute out of your day. Who cares if it doesn't do anything? The chance that it will do something, and it only takes like a minute or two, go for it. Sign petitions. I love signing petitions. I'm not sure if you can tell. The second one is a little bit more involved, but is pretty impactful a good chunk of the time, and that is contacting your congressperson. So, go on your little Google, or if you already know, that's great. Figure out who is representing you in Congress. Like your senator, your representative. I'm not sure which chamber of the Congress this bill is currently in, but why not contact both? Why not contact everybody? It will never hurt to contact more people about it. Just send them an email like, hey, I've heard about this legislation and I am a big supporter of it and I am one of your constituents. A constituent is basically just means, hey, you represent me. You should be listening to me because I'm one of the people that votes for you. And as we all know, politicians love earning their votes. So make them earn yours. Support this openly. But that brings us into our last thing that regular citizens can do, and that is voting for representatives that support the Crown Act and the end to hair discrimination in educational and professional spaces. Use your vote. We should already be voting anyway. And if you're not, go for it. What's the worst that's going to happen? You take 20 minutes out of your day and you get a sticker? Yes, please. I love stickers personally, so that's already a win. But the other win is potentially helping make a change in this country. And it's something really simple that you can do that's considered a civil responsibility of being a US citizen. So go for it. Who's going to stop you? If you can vote, vote. So those are just a couple of things that the average American can do. And that's already great. But like I mentioned earlier, it can be kind of hard for the average American citizen to feel like they have power or to even just have a good chunk of power in this country. But who does have power? Businesses, especially corporations. So what can a business do to help end hair discrimination? And pretty much any sort of discrimination. This is all pretty broad stuff, I'm going to be real. But right now, focusing on hair discrimination, what can a business do? Okay, so first let's understand a big part of discrimination in the businesses. So I looked at some interviews. We love interviews with real people who worked at real businesses, okay? This isn't fabricated. This is real experiences of things that have happened because of discrimination in the workplace. And this can even just be microaggressions. So microaggressions, definition down here. If you don't know what those are, go ahead and read. It sucks. Just because it's called micro doesn't mean it doesn't matter, okay? Gone. All right, so first, we have hair being touched without permission. Just don't do that, But that has happened to a lot of people. And it confuses me personally because people don't really go up and touch my hair without permission. That's because I'm white. So, yeah, just understand that's something that can and probably has happened in your workplace. The second one I saw really irked me, and that was being ignored by clients when someone's hair was in natural style. Really? That not only is it making it harder for the employee to do her job, but the client isn't getting help and is showing open bias and bigotry. So that's already not great. You can only imagine the toll that would take on a human being, especially if you're a manager thinking about this. If someone is being ignored by their clients, they're not going to be able to do their job fully. And they might get repercussions from management because they're not able to do their job fully. But it's not their fault that people have biases. It sucks, And the third one is just being asked a lot of questions about their hair. It's they've got other things that they're doing in life, kids, marriage, big work project that they just did really, really good on, maybe. There's bigger things in life than how your hair is, And that's gonna get frustrating after a while. If someone was oh, how do you do your hair? And then I would tell them, and then they would continue asking questions about my hair routine and why my hair looks like this when I just like absolutely killed a presentation and I'd rather talk more about the big project I'm working on. Or maybe I just got married and all they can care about is how I do my freaking hair. Like, that'd be really frustrating. Like, I'm not a huge fan of that, you know? And then the next one also causes a lot of distress in my soul. Hair being joked about. Don't joke about how people's hair looks, you know? But that is something that's happened in workplaces. And it's important to acknowledge that has happened, you know? It's not great. You gotta acknowledge it, even if we don't fully understand why it's happening, especially if we've already deconstructed our own biases or never had those biases in the first place because of our upbringing. It can be hard to understand, but we don't have to understand to empathize and to acknowledge that things happen. So just like keep that in mind. Hearing all of that, it can be hard, especially if you're a manager and you don't want this happening in your place of work. Like, I wouldn't want this happening if I was a manager. So what can people do to stop it, you know? If you are in a position of power, what can you do for your employees, your group members, your students, whatever, to help them not be discriminated against? How can you challenge people's biases, you know? So first, set up a culture of tolerance wherever you are. If it's a classroom, a workplace, we're going to be working mostly with workplaces here. So just like replace workplace with classroom if you're a teacher. Cool? Cool. Set a culture of tolerance, you know? Maybe celebrate holidays from all different religions and cultural backgrounds, you know? Maybe do things for Black History Month and LGBT History Month and all of that. Like, really put yourself out there and show people, hey, here we accept, love, and celebrate diversity. Like, we've gotta, you know? And that sets up a good culture for people to tolerate people who are different than them. And that could potentially bring down these microaggressions. And then the next one, encourage respectful learning. So this would be like, instead of asking someone 500 million questions about how their hair works or accusing them of being dirty or something, having people Google stuff if they can. Or like, if they have questions to ask, how do you ask things respectfully? So if someone was like, why do people need glasses? I know people know why people need glasses, but like, that would be something to Google. Or like, why do I have glasses so young? Something to Google. Why do young people need glasses? But if you want to know something like, why did I choose my frames? That can be something that you ask me. So that's like a respectful approach to learning. If it can be Googled, do it. But if it's something that like celebrates it, like, oh, like if someone likes my style and wants to know how I chose these or where I got my glasses, that's learning about me in a way that does not just only learn about my glasses. It involves my glasses, but it centers me. Next, celebrate cultural diversity. We kind of covered that with the first thing because I got a little carried away. But diversity is important. Encourage it. Hire diverse staff. Celebrate different holidays, yada, yada, yada. Just not only is it great for morale and for the people who aren't the cisgendered straight white men, but diversity has been proven to help teams and workplaces create more innovative and effective ideas and solutions. So like, why wouldn't you want some solid diversity? And then next, this one's like really, really big. Do something when you notice incidents of discrimination. You don't have to jump in there and be like, stop. How could you say/do that to them? Because that's centering you. You're not the center of this. The center of this is the action and the person who the action is being done against. Worry about their well-being. If you notice the action, talk to them afterwards like, yo, are you okay? That wasn't cool. Do you want me to talk to them? How do you want to rectify this? Like, don't embarrass people in the process of it. But if someone's also like touching hair without permission, you can distract them, get them to go and do something else for a little bit. Like, oh, hey, did you get those reports done yet? And they get away. Or you can try and pull the other employee away that's being acted against. Like, oh, hey, can you step into my office real quick? Just something. If you're going to stop the incident as it's happening, do it in a subtle way so no one walks away embarrassed or in a way that centers you. You know? And then the last thing, which kind of ties into other stuff talked about in this video, specifically the last section, show public support for the Crown Act. Not only does that help promote cultural diversity and diversity in general and show tolerance, but the Crown Act would help kind of spread this idea to all workplaces. So if you're at a big corporation or a business that has some social media, maybe make a post being like, here we support Crown Act legislation. If you have an Instagram, maybe post some pictures that talk about like what the legislation actually is. You know, like spread awareness, show your public support for people. And as a business, that is pretty much most of what I think you can do, because there's not like a ton. No one has universal power, really. But these steps can help at least make a start in ending hair discrimination at your workplace specifically. Okay, that took a while. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you learned something and enjoyed this video. Obviously, this is fairly out of my depth. I am very, very, very white. And I grew up in a pretty white community. So if I got anything wrong, please let me know in the comments below. All my sources are in the description. Please read those. A lot of them were written by Black women who have experienced these issues, and they have said it so much better than I could. So please, like, look those up, read them for yourself. They are fantastic. If you have any suggestions or questions, or you maybe don't agree with something I said in this video, also go to the comments. I would love to hear opinions. If I got something wrong, I want to learn more, you know? So like, just head on down there. Leave a like, hit subscribe, all that fun stuff. I hope you enjoyed. I will see you guys in the future for another video. Have a great week.